He's the chief political correspondent for Revolt News, the homegirl Tezlyn Figaro. Tez, what's happening with you?
What's happening? I'm the homegirl. What's up, everybody? It's so good to be back with you, back with all of the Gangster Chronicles folks. It's been a minute. I think it's been a couple
of years. A couple of years, yeah.
Since I've been on with you guys. And that's your fault. You should have been having me back. Not eight.
Yeah, for sure. It's my fault for sure. It's my fault for sure, but I'm bringing you in with a count now.
Yeah.
You know, I was in the barbershop. What made me hit you up, Tez, is I was in the barbershop and I just heard so much misinformation. Now, I'm not a political pundit, right? I don't claim to be that's not my game. I call you and ask you when I want to know something. But I heard a lot of stuff that was just misinformation. And I said, you know what? I think it's important, man, that we put the real out there and let people in our community know what's real and what's not real. Because like I told somebody, you know, yeah, Donald Trump is the president-elect, but he can't just do what he want to do. Mm-hmm. Am I right to a certain extent?
To a certain extent. He can kind of... yeah. Y'all must have been talking about this on the back end. Let's have a conversation in the G way, the way that we understand it best. He's pushing a mean line. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The idea, I think you're looking at what previous presidents have done, what previous presidents have, you know, what they would say, respect the Constitution, respect the process, you know, go through Congress to get everything done. But Donald Trump has signed a plethora of executive orders, and he plans to sign over 200. Now, executive orders mean he coming on the block. He's saying, hey, this is what it is. We switching it up. We going to do it my way. What many would call a dictatorship, which is saying I'm not going to worry about running nothing by the Congress, which means the House and the Senate. Let's do the gang. You know, I love coming on Gangster Chronicle. Let's do it the Gangster Chronicle where he ain't running nothing by the little homies. Don't worry about the YGs, the BGs, the whoever, the big homie in the building. He said, this is how it's going to be. I'm pushing the line. Everybody fall in line. Now, to your point, that doesn't mean he won't be challenged. It doesn't mean that right now over 20 state attorneys are challenging many of the executive orders that he had, one in particular in birthright citizenship. It doesn't mean that Democrats won't say, you know what, we're going to make sure that this doesn't come into law. So he's doing two things, and I just kind of want to make it really simple and plain. There are some things that executive order, I'm putting it into action. There's some things that he's just writing as a way to change the ideology, the thinking of things. And then there's some things that will have to actually go through law and Congress will have to pass, but he controls Congress. He controls the House and the Senate. So he kind of doing what he want to do.
So he can do, so he just gangstering his way in there now.
Yeah.
You know, I know the big talk, man, with him has been border security. And like I was explaining to somebody, it's like the whole world comes in illegally to America through Mexico, so to speak, right?
I wouldn't say the whole world, but I'm following you.
Yeah, because you know where else they gonna come from?
The ones they talk about. I mean, people come from Haiti, people come from other states, people come from other countries. It's not just Mexico. Now, if you want to talk about California, you know, what you're in close proximity to, yes, but Mexico is usually who gets talked about the most. But no, immigrants come from all over the world.
Yeah, so when he talk about border security, that's what I'm saying. He's not just talking about Mexico. He got to be talking about Miami because they got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of people coming in through there. So is he talking about all around, like just securing our borders?
He's talking about all around, but he has a very targeted focus
on Mexico, right?
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I figured that from the jump. He's very adamant about the border in Mexico.
Yeah, very hyper focused. Yeah, for sure. Because when you look at the states like Texas, for example, that has really, you know, in the Republican Party, really pushed the line about that and having too many, you know, immigrants in the state of Texas, and a lot of the governors that sent the immigrants down to Chicago and New York and LA and all that came from Texas, which is Mexico. So there's a hyper focus. But of course, there's immigrants that come, you know, from white immigrants that come from all over the world.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a hyper focus on Mexico. There's a real issue with Mexico and talking about the southern border.
You know, now with all that, you know, Tez, and now we do have to have our border secure. You know, that's important. You know, our country's security is important. But when he starts talking about like stuff like ending birthright, you know, citizenship, something that I thought about. I said, damn, so if a kid is born over here, he's not an American citizen anymore. Is that, can you clarify that a little bit?
Okay, so in birthright citizenship, what he's trying to change in the 14th Amendment is saying that if your parent, your mother and your father, if they were an illegal immigrant, he's used that term back to use an illegal immigrant, if they are not a citizen, if the parent and the father, or if they're over here on a temporary status, the child will not be a citizen. Whereas previous policy, I want to make the distinction between with Biden, with the 14th Amendment in the Constitution, like there's going to be some challenges on that because he's trying to change the Constitution. So there is going to be some challenges on that. Will that be passed in the law? Will the attorneys allow it? Will some state attorneys challenge that, which they've already doing? 20 state attorneys have already are already challenging this. So I want to be very clear in what we're talking about. The things we're talking about are the things that he wants to do, that he's basically said, I'm going to do this executive order to do it. It has not been effective yet because it still has a process to go through. And that's probably where you're saying, he can't just do whatever he want to do. There's a process, but I don't want to confuse people and not I don't want people to get the understanding that Trump does have the House and the Senate. So if these are things he's wanting to push, this still can be very likely. He also, people would argue that he has control of the Supreme Court, because there's more conservative judges on the Supreme Court, the Democrat judges. So Trump has effectively locked down every single level. So if he says this is something he wants to make happen, he got all his people in place to make that happen. But I want to make the distinction as we're going through. But the end birthright citizenship is saying that if your parents are not a legal citizen, or if they're just over here temporary, the child is not. Now, the concern that attorneys have, legal scholars have, they're saying that can be a slippery slope, not as of right now, but imagine if they went back and said that everybody who was ever over here, from somebody that was not a citizen of this nation, which is why the 14th Amendment was put into place to actually, we were included in that as well, to make us actual citizens when we were enslaved. People are concerned about how far back can they really go with that? Can it affect other people like Black Americans?
Now, to be real, that was one of the conversations in the barbershop. They said, what are they going to do? Try to send us from over here?
Legal scholars are saying it again, I don't want to say it's a possibility for people to just say, oh man, they go, I want to be very clear in how I'm giving this information. It's a slippery slope. Let me give you a good example to take it out of this. You remember when there was a time you couldn't smoke at all, in buildings or restaurants. Where you could smoke. You could smoke wherever you wanted to smoke. You could smoke in a restaurant, you could smoke wherever you wanted to be. And remember how that policy went from smoking wherever you want to then smoking 25 feet away from the building, then 25 feet to no smoking at all. So policy has a way of coming out and being one thing because they want to test it out. That there is always a possibility for something to get, to go extreme. There's always a possibility to say, if we're going to apply this to them, why not are we applying it to everyone? Right now, it's saying your first generation, your mother, your father. Legal scholars are saying, well, what about if it go all the way back to your grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, your great-great-great-great-grandfather, who were not citizens, considered citizens in this country when they were enslaved, which is why the 14th Amendment was put into place in the first place. So when you hear people having that conversation, what they're saying is, how do we know this is not going to get more and more aggressive like we saw with Roe versus Wade when they actually did, turn back Roe versus Wade, which is abortion. So when you got everybody on lock, the House, the Senate, the court, the possibility of anything can happen. That's a very real concern that people need to be concerned about.
Yeah, because I've been having conversations with some of the Mexican homies, and I was talking to one of the Mexican homies today, and he told me, he said, man, I've been over here for 48 years, and I'm not a citizen. He just now kind of finding out. He said, I'm not a citizen, bro. I never got my stuff, and I've been over here since I was a year old.
Yep. Well, he absolutely could be affected.
Because so he's trying to go get his stuff right. He's trying to go get it right now. But I told all the homies, I said, man, y'all better go make sure y'all paperwork is straight.
But some people gonna make sure their paperwork straight and gonna end up getting deported. I'm just being out there because a lot of that in the end, birthright citizenship is saying that while you waiting on your paperwork, you're gonna have to go back to your homeland. It ain't none of that no more about get your paperwork right and just sit over here. No, Trump trying to end all that. You're gonna get your paperwork when you get sent back. So if people are going to get their paperwork straight, they might be getting snatched up. I mean, I'm just being straight up. That's how serious they are about this policy.
So how fast does something like an executive order come into effect?
Well, he signed many of this effective right now today. So when he changed so a couple things here. And it depends on exactly what we're talking about, because there's over 200. And so there can be some that's going to take, going through Congress. He signed one in the law today that's going to take going through Congress, to say, okay, we want to make this a law. There's also policy that has nothing to do with changing the law. He's just changing out, okay, who's going to be the border czar now? Who's going to be over immigration? Now I'm going to make ICE, the immigration services. Now we're going to tell them to be more aggressive with it. So I don't want to give too much of people to consume, because I don't want to confuse people, but each executive order or policy or whatever it is has its own route on making it law, or it might be something effective, like right now with him directing federal employees to now have a hiring freeze, and nobody they don't want anybody to hire anybody till they figure out how to save money. People might confuse that and think that's an executive order, but it's not, because he's also putting people in place over these different departments as well. So it really does depend on what it is and what we're talking about.
Okay, so with this mass deportation, it's gonna get real out there then.
It's gonna get real out there. That is something he absolutely has control over. Because so everything that Biden did on border control and not locking up families and giving people a chance to come over, seek asylum, he's reversing all of that. That's literally what he ran on. That was the main thing he ran on, and he's doing exactly what he promised those who voted for him. What he wanted them to do, what they want him to do.
And largely it was a lot of Hispanic voters that voted for him.
Yes, and I don't know why people. I'm glad you brought that up, still, because people keep saying, "Oh, they're gonna find out." Let's be really clear: the Hispanic voters that voted for Donald Trump were legal Hispanic, for the most part, legal Hispanic voters. People love doing this meme. They're going to fuck around and find out. No, especially in Florida. Let's be very clear about this. The Hispanic voting block is 50-50. They are certainly not a monolith, meaning they don't all vote the same. The Hispanics in Florida, the Cubans in Florida, they absolutely are conservative, Republican. They are absolutely say that if we had to get our paperwork, we want you to get your paperwork. They absolutely do not want to have to compete, with non-citizens of Hispanic origin. They absolutely voted for Trump, because to them, Cuba, the way that the left is going, the Democrats are going, it reminds them of socialism. So they are very afraid of a socialist society. So the Hispanics, that's why Hispanics has many, many, many different, subgroups, not just Hispanic. Versus your Hispanics who are in California that largely vote Democrat. The Hispanics in California who are coming from the Mexico border, Mexico, have a different ideology. They're saying, I want to bring my cousin over. So these two groups voted very different. So people are not proving a point when I've seen all these videos on TikTok. Oh, the Hispanics are finding out. That's exactly what they wanted. And what has also happened still in 8, this ideology has gone beyond just in Florida. In New York, Hispanics went on record, of saying, and New York is one of the most Democrat liberal cities in the country. Hispanics have went on record saying, and you can look at many clips saying, I'm tired of my business compete. If I had to come over here and get my paperwork and do everything I needed to do, then they need to do the same thing. I'm tired of competing with them. Same thing in Arizona, which is by California, Nevada, which is by California. Those Hispanics voted for Trump in large amounts. So we are not talking about California. So the people you talking to in California are not the same in Arizona, in Nevada, and in Florida. Totally different populations.
Yeah, and I know none of us don't hear Hispanic, so not trying to speak for them. What do you think brought along that shift?
It's all, well, if you talk about, it's not about speaking, the data is out there. So when you talk, so there's two things. You have an ideology, which is conservative, which is me, you know, this is what I believe. I believe in God first. I believe in no abortion. I believe in carrying, you know, rights to gun, the conservative mindset, which, by the way, Black people traditionally were raised under conservative values. Traditionally, that's just a fact. Grandma and them, great grandma and them, if you came from any family that said you're gonna go to church on Sunday, you're gonna go to prayer meeting on Wednesday, on Thursday, you're going to choir rehearsal. My grandmother, who's 93 years old, swears up and down she's a Democrat. Her ideology, and I tell this all the time, your ideology is absolutely conservative. She's self-employed her entire life. My grandfather was self-employed. They own their own business. Never been on any government assistance, no welfare, no nothing. Very conservative in how they eat, how they drink. Literally, you get 4 ounces of juice. Ain't none of that going back and forth to the refrigerator all day. Yeah, ain't none of that. You eat your oatmeal on Sunday morning. If you don't eat that oatmeal all the way, guess what you eating for lunch? Oatmeal. You're gonna finish that oatmeal. They believe in sitting your own bottom. They believe in giving to the poor, but they would not give it to me, because if you got yourself in that situation, you better figure out how to get your way out. They are totally pull yourself up by the bootstraps. They believe in God first. They don't believe in same-sex marriage. They are absolutely the epitome of conservative. She votes Democrat.
And what you just described was me, all of our grandparents. My grandparents, I'm pretty sure Abe's grandparents.
Yes. Black people are largely moderate or conservative on our fundamental beliefs. Now, a Republican, which is why you kind of got to make the difference between, even though they're the same, it's not really when I'm explaining this context. A Republican is saying, you know, this policy, business, and that's why you'll see, you know, I got a tax break, or I like the business initiatives. You remember when Nas and Jay-Z did the Republican Democrat, you know, record many years ago. So people that are about the bag, people that are about, you know, the Second Amendment, people, they may be Republican, but they may not be conservative in their ideology, meaning they may not have a problem with abortion. They may not have a problem with same-sex marriage, but they're Republican when it comes to their bag. I just want to make that distinction.
We saw a lot of that this year.
Right. So when you ask about the Hispanic population, it's not about speaking for them. This is just data. The cultural Hispanic population in large, not all, but particularly Cuban, particularly those who voted conservative and Republican, believe in family values. Remember, they're largely Catholic. Catholics don't believe in abortion. Catholics believe in marriage. Catholics believe in same thing with Christianity, but Catholics in the Hispanic community largely believe in family first, God first, which is why, just being real, you see a lot of children, they don't believe in abortion. You'll see them living together, and, you know, separate big family values. And so when you start talking about conservative values, the Hispanic population is very much in line with those values. But they're also in line, many of them are in line with the Republican side of it, which is being a business. If you look at Florida, and the most successful business owners in construction are Hispanic businesses. They're not just putting Hispanics building, you know, on the ground. They run these businesses. I lived in Florida. It was my political stomping ground, and we always had to compete. Black businesses, Black construction business always have to compete. So Hispanics in Florida are very much in the construction business, do very well. So when they say, so they may not care about abortion or this or that, but they may be like, from a Republican standpoint, I'm aligning myself with my money, which is a Republican push. So the Hispanic population, to be honest with you, they are voting in line with their culture, but 50% of them are liberal. Whereas when you compare that to the Black voter, I want to be clear about this. I'm not talking about Black people that don't vote, Black people that are not a part of the process. I'm only talking about the Black voter, which is not the same as all Black people. The Black voter has been largely liberal. Now, why that makes a difference still, even though Black people were largely brought up on conservative values, all the things that we talked about with grandma and all of that, Black people also are our culture is one of the most compassionate groups of people because of all of the things that we've been through. So my grandmother, as conservative as she is, she still votes Democrat because she thinks Republicans are mean. She thinks they don't care about the poor enough. She thinks they're not concerned about the least of these enough. She thinks that, everybody should love everybody. Even though she doesn't believe in same-sex marriage, she still would love, if she had a gay son, she would love him the same. So Black people largely are very compassionate. Let's think about everybody, not our own interests. Let's think about everybody as a whole. Think about it when you go to your aunt's house, you go to Big Mama's house. When it's time for Thanksgiving dinner, the first thing they do is gonna set a plate aside for somebody who ain't there. That's a common thing, let me set this aside because still gonna run late. Why he can't be here with everybody else? Why we gotta set aside? Well, let me put a bunch of plates on top of the refrigerator for all the people that wasn't there. So our mindset, that's a universal thing. So when you think about politics, that's how Black people think about their politics. Well, I'm good, but let me make sure neighbor good up the street. Let me make sure. So we don't always vote our self-interest. And I'm here to say that Black people should vote our self-interest. So what's happened now is Black people been riding for every other community. And now they see with this last election, while you out here riding for every other community, they riding for themselves. And I ain't mad at it because you are supposed to ride for you. What the Crips look like riding for the Bloods? What the Bloods look like riding for the Crips? You should be pushing your own line on your own community on what best serves you. So people are disappointed that white women didn't vote the interests that you thought they should have voted. They voted what's going to make their community better, which is making sure white men are in power.
You know what? I didn't want to veer too much off course because there's a lot of stuff I want to try to fit in there, right? But the one thing I'm tired of seeing, Tez, nobody ever talks about reparations.
What do you mean nobody? What do you mean nobody? Are
Like,
you talking about a politician?
You hear a lot of people talking about it, but ain't no action being done about it.
Ain't no action.
Well, it was that's not true. So we got to look at what action are you talking about on the local level, on the state level. There's plenty of people talking about it. In California, they tried to pass it. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but there's plenty of action. So when I say I'm very careful about words. When we say ain't nobody, I say that's everybody. We don't want to say everybody. No, they talked about it heavy in the 2020 campaign on the federal side. What everybody, Cory Booker talked about it. They pushed Bernie Sanders' ass to at least try to acknowledge it. Meaning now whether they was capping or not, they did talk about it. But reparations should be a local or state thing. They pass forms of reparations. Now, it's not. So when you talk about reparations, there's different subgroups that have their own thing that they want to see from reparations. They'll say, well, that ain't really reparations, or that ain't really it. So I want to be clear about that. I rock with the reparations. So I know many of them don't consider many of the things I'm about to tell you as reparations, but many of those cities do. For example, San Francisco passed they literally called reparation type bills. They can only manage, and I believe it was San Francisco, and if I get it wrong, my apologies. They can only be over their jurisdiction. They can't pass it for all Black people all over the country, but they can say, you know what, we're passing reparations for Black people on, and I believe it was on housing. It was on some type of, you had some type of action at housing if you have been discriminated against with redlining. So it depends on how you look at reparations, what you're looking from that. Some people say, we suffered so many atrocities across the board that many will say, let's focus on land. Let's focus on housing. Let's focus on criminal justice. Let's focus on, all of those different things. And so there have been many cities who have passed many to address reparations and have literally used reparations in the actual policy. It just didn't affect everybody in the country. Now, when you hear reparations, usually as a whole, you're talking about the folks on social media who I would say have the strongest voice in it. And they're literally talking about a check for every descendant, of Black people. But I want people to put out there that it's not that nobody's not talking about it. People are moving forward with the policy in the ways that they can in their own local government. And that's why I keep encouraging people, try to change it. You start at the local first. When the local, when you get something on local, then the state does it. And then at some point, it hopefully will bubble up to the federal level. What you see people online talking about, they want to go straight to the federal. And that's a very hard thing to do when you should be chipping away. It's just like if you taking over a hood, if you taking, I love using gangbanging now. I can't help it. If you taking over a hood, you don't come in and just all of a sudden you're gonna literally. And I'll use the Bloods for examples because in the 90s they were the smallest. They're the minority, still the minority in many places. Overall, you still would say the minority. You don't see them coming in and just taking over the whole city. You're going to start with one neighborhood. Then you're going to start with another one. You ain't trying to make no whole bunch of noise. Then you're going to start with another. Then you look up. Oh, wow, damn, we got a whole territory. Now you don't come in just same thing. I could use a dope game, but I'll leave that alone. But my point. You come over block by block. Yeah, block by block. So it's not that it's not happening. Actually, the way to do it is to take it over block by block. But you still want the reparation that's making the noise on the national level because you want to make the noise. But when you actually take over a hood and actually get something done, it has to start block by block. And that's a real analogy. I use it all the time. But this is the only show where people actually understand what the hell I'm talking about. So I get excited when I get to use these analogies. But that's what happened in the Midwest. You didn't see, it was literally when LA Big Turf started all these hoods, you didn't go to Oklahoma. You had to do it block by block, one home at a time, another home at a time, another home at a time, till eventually, okay, the whole city is repping Pyru. The whole city is repping 60s. The whole city, but that went by one at a time. It wasn't just no one big thing. Politics works the same way. Gangbanging is politics. It really, really is. You are literally taking over block by block until you get it done. And if you never get it done, if the entire city is never pushing your set, what does it matter as long as your neighborhood is getting everything that it needs? That's how politics is supposed to work. That's why I tell people, focus on the local and the state. As long as my neighborhood is getting, as long as we eating, long as we protected, people know they can't come over and just do any kind of drive-by. There ain't gonna be no consequence behind it. Long as we getting food in people's mouth, we running money, we getting money, we doing whatever. Long as I know that once I pull into my neighborhood, I'm good. I'm good from 80th Street all the way to 92nd. That's really how politics works. We get into the conversation of saying we want all LA to be like this. No, just focus on Inglewood. Just focus on Compton. Because really, as long as your people are doing good outside your front door, you're effective. We have to stop talking about all of California. All of California ain't going to be on the same page. But you can get Compton on the same page. Compton can eat. Inglewood can eat. Long Beach can eat. Politics is about local. And by the way, Republicans push that. They push, when you hear them talk about leave it up to the states, that's what they're talking about. I'll translate. What that mean is leave it up to the sets. Let the sets run how they want to run they set. And whoever in that state, you need to be pushing your governors and your mayors and all of that to see what you want to see in front of you. Don't worry about what they're doing in Georgia. Focus on California and then focus on your particular city, because that's really all that matters. If the mayor is giving a grant for his kids, and taking care of him and taking care of the softball, the uniforms and taking care of the after school programs and making sure the homies got jobs at the Inglewood Stadium and making sure this and making sure that, then you good as far as what's happening in your community. And that's where we have to get the conversation to.
Because you have, ever since I first met you, you've been pushing that start local, local, and it means a lot more, especially to a person like A who says all the time, I don't follow politics because it don't do nothing for me.
Yeah, well, when we say don't do nothing for me, again, if we're talking about the president and Congress, I can see how you would feel that way, especially if nobody's saying, well, this particular policy made it possible for you to have XYZ. One, they don't educate and tell people what the hell they're doing. Democrats are terrible with actually saying what they do.
Right.
They're terrible with it. They get mad at Trump. Trump's the best marketer ever, whether you like it or not. When he sent out those checks, which really came from Congress, Trump made sure to put his name on those COVID checks. He created the idea that it came from Trump when really it came from a Democrat Congress, but he's better at marketing. Governor Kemp did the same thing in Georgia. When Corona was happening, he sent out money cards called Kemp cards. He made sure that every time you swipe whatever you needed, you remember Kemp did it. So when Stacey Abrams ran as a governor, how you can't compete with that if I was just hungry last week and I remember swiping that Kemp card, because remember, you're thinking of your self-interest. Hey, I all know about all that. I want Stacey to win. I want a black woman governor, but at the end of the day, who fed me last week? So it's not that haven't done anything for you. Democrats are terrible. Barack Obama bragged about that. We did the same thing. We just didn't put our name on it. Well, you should put your name on it. Gang banging. Gonna put their name on it. It's a reason why when you go in my hood, the minute you go on 79th, you know you in a Piru hood. How you know you're in a Piru hood?
Look at the walls.
That's
Look
right.
At the graffiti, yep.
Niggas let you know you enter in the zone.
That's right. Politics is supposed to work the same way. You ain't never got to worry about if somebody go put in work, you gonna know who put in the work. You gonna know about it. There was a such and such said that did this because it goes a part of their cachet. It goes a part of their political cachet. Your politic, your cachet. This particular set ain't to be fucked with. This particular set gonna end up. Matter of fact, rest in peace to E.T., who I met in 1993, buried in Inglewood Cemetery. He would literally go and put in work and say his name loud, and everybody would say, "Why you keep saying your name?" Because I want to know Big E.T. did it. This is why the Trump marketing strategy is very much in line with a gangster mentality, because it's aggressive, it's bold, it's not giving a damn, it's letting you know what it is. Now, people don't have to like Trump. I'm just telling you what it is. Where Democrats have taken a different approach, so now people don't know what you've done. You're not saying it with your chest. You're not making sure people know you did X, Y, Z. You're not. So now these things are getting reversed back. Like, for example, prescription drug costs. That was one of the things that Trump signed an executive order to roll back. So if you are on a diabetic, which affects black men in great numbers, affects black people in great numbers, now your prescription cost is going to be double. So when somebody say, well, politics ain't never did nothing for me, well, you're going to find out what politics is doing when some of these things, get rolled back, because Democrats didn't do a good job of saying, hey, y'all, that was me that did X, Y, Z. They're terrible at that. I've always said, that's why I'm independent. I left Democrat Party in 2010. They're terrible with that. So it's not that they haven't did anything. It's what have they done? And then also, who are you supposed to give the credit to? So if I just look at you and what you guys are doing, and you say, I'll give an example that's real time is going to affect all of us in podcasting. Trump invested one of the policies that he signed, not an executive order, but one of the things he did was investing $300 million in AI. How is AI going to affect us in the podcast space? How is AI
start making fake programs?
Right. So those are things. Policy affects you one way or the other, whether it's your little league team that you work with. Where does the funding, when we talk about DEI and people thinking that it's just white people to benefit from that? So a lot of people that on YouTube be talking, don't know what they're talking about and just spread misinformation. That's just affirmative action and white women. No, it's not. When we talk about diversity and equity and initiative programs, we're not just talking about people to get hired. We're not just talking about African, affirmative action. We're talking about any program that says, you know what, we want to do right by the black community. And we want to make sure State Farm gives a certain amount of advertising to the black effect. That AT&T gives a certain amount of advertising to black effect. That a particular group is saying, you know what? We're not just going to fund the white little league teams. We want to make sure that we look good as Walmart, and we're going to give a grant to 8. That's politics. These are programs and policies that have been put in place because they benefited from the federal government by doing those things. Think about people that have contracts with Walmart. Walmart has ended their diversity program. They have ended their diversity program. So I know a couple of people that got, I remember the Brat's wife, Judy. She, the
hair products.
I remember when she got in Walmart because I remember seeing it all over those programs out of there. Now, if Walmart decided to keep doing it, that's fine. But nothing is encouraging them to do it. Nothing is holding them accountable to do it. Nothing is making them do it. When the Black Effect started in 2020, and those companies said after George Floyd, we're going to give $100 million to support black business. They never did give those companies the money. And guess what? They never have to do it now. So these DEI programs absolutely affect us in many, many ways that we just haven't connected the dots still because it hasn't been enough information out there, to get people to get it.
Yeah. And like you said, to reiterate what you said, the Democratic Party does a horrible job of explaining stuff. It's like, and I don't know everything, but when I sit up in the barbershop and I hear all the misinformation, I say, you know what, man, we would be irresponsible if we didn't talk about this. You feel what I'm saying? So when you start talking about stuff like the travel ban and all this other stuff, some of this stuff, it seems like I've heard before.
Well, remember, Trump was already in, so he's bringing back everything that he had. What happened? Right. Trump put all this stuff in place. Biden came back, wiped it out. Trump bringing it back. It's tit for tat. So that's why you heard
with this travel ban. So anybody from a Muslim or Arab country will have a hard time coming over here, huh?
They have not, from as of now, because they're updating this information in real time. So I don't want to go too far into saying anything. They have not, from the last time I checked, have not updated the travel ban. Right now, as it speaks, it's saying there's currently no travel ban as far as 2025. Before, it was a series of executive orders taken by Trump that restricted entry back then. That order was in 2017. So I don't know if if he plans on that's one of the things that he's saying. He basically said he's going to do a bunch of stuff. We don't know yet because we're just a weekend. So that has not been done as of yet, but he did do that before. So people are anticipating that he'll do it again.
He done kicked up a whole bunch of dust in them first few, man.
Well, he told y'all, he said, we're going to do it day one. Day one, he's doing a drive-by. Bottom line, doing a drive-by to day one. He said day one. Democrats could did this day one too. But they always want to take it. Oh, let's take it to Congress. Let's wait. Let's do it. Let's do that. Trump is showing you how much power a president could actually have. Even if he doesn't get anything done, his supporters will appreciate it because he tried. That's the difference. When you just sit back and say, I ain't going to do nothing. So you ain't even, if you my man, even if you know you're going to get your ass whooped and some man challenge you, you ain't even going to fight at all. You just gonna sit, you know what I mean? You're gonna sit on your ass. People still, I want to know, you put it in, you tried, you gave it the college try. That goes a long way in leadership. We know this in the streets. You may not be the hardest on the set, you may not be, but he a rider though. He a rider. He gonna do what he do.
You don't back,
that's it. That go a long way. That go a long way in the penitentiary. You get your ass whooped. But did he put his boots on? No. Did he show up on the yard? Did he do whatever? Again, that's the same mindset that you're supposed to have in politics that just Democrats just don't have. And Trump has that. So his people feel like, I'm going to put it there because at least I know he's going to try. Trump know a lot of this stuff ain't going to go through. He know a lot of this ain't going to be possible, but he's putting on the whole show. He did that a part of his inauguration. It's never happened like that. Right at the end of his inauguration, a stack of stuff he signed in day one. After he signed it, I don't know if y'all saw it, he signed it, then threw the pins out to the crowd and all that. Like he all about the showmanship of it all. And that is very
but that comes from being an entertainer. He's a real entertainer.
Yeah,
he's an entertaining motherfucker. He's very polarizing.
Yes, and you can't, and that's the way to do it. And Democrats just refuse to do it. And until they get on board, you're gonna keep getting your ass handed to you. That's just the bottom line. People want to be entertained. You have to have a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of educate. That's how it works. Even in this digital space that we're in, there has to be a little bit of something, to keep people.
Yeah, gotta be element. Ain't nobody, if ain't nobody checking for us, we won't be here.
That's right. And he's just better at it, guys. And when I say that you praising Trump, no, I'm telling you what it is. He's better at it.
He is better at it. I'm gonna be real with you, Tez. He gives you a lot to think about.
He gonna make you have a lot to think about because it's gonna be 2-3 headlines on a daily basis.
He can give you a lot to think about. You can't help but think about it. One of the things I wanted to ask you, like they were talking about the people getting pardoned from January 6th, and I had to remind them. I said, y'all do know that some of them people have been in jail for 4 years already.
It don't matter. None of that matters. If the big homie say you getting out, he doing gangster shit. It don't matter about if they was in 1 day, 5 days, 10 days. He's saying y'all rolled for me, y'all went down and put in work, and I'm getting all the homies out. Period. Those were his riders.
I wasn't mad at that. And what I'm saying is this. I think some people
I don't like it. Ain't nobody partnering us, so I feel a way about it.
But that was
I'm always be mad at it. But
that was my thing too. I was like, where the other partners at? But
they ain't he don't owe no other part. So let me stop right there because that's important. He don't owe you shit. I feel away because I'm just resentful because I want the homies out. So I just feel away. Right. But at the end of the day, he don't owe you shit. Well, where are other partners at? See, Obama and all of them told you still he the president for everybody. I'm everybody's president. That's not how it works, guys.
Obama didn't do shit.
No, but I don't want to get into that because It just depends on what you're looking for and what you consider doing shit. The point is, the president is not everybody's president. They got to stop that mentality. The president is the president for the people that voted him in. That's how it really actually works. You are only supposed to do what the people that voted you in. If I say I'm everybody's woman, I'm only my man's woman. Why would I be everybody's woman? That don't even make no sense. So the previous presidents with this, I'm everybody's president. I want to please everybody. I want to get a little bit of him over here. Why would you be trying to please people that don't fuck with you? What Trump does and what Republicans do very well, they're not concerned about you that didn't vote for them. He's concerned about the 70 million people that said they wanted these things done. So he's doing it. So when people are in the comments saying, well, that's what they wanted, so that's what they get. Right. That's the whole point. They wanted it and he's doing it and he don't give a damn how you feel about it. So when we say pardons, when you say, well, where are the other part? That's the mindset of thinking he's supposed to keep it fair. This shit ain't about keeping shit fair. This is gangster shit all the way. I don't like it because I just feel a way about it. But he is absolutely supposed to pardon his homies if that's what he wanted to do.
He did what he was supposed to do.
Would never though, except when it comes to their family, like what Biden did with his family. He made sure he took care of his family. But a Democrat never, they want to keep it fair. Let me do one over here, then one over there, then one over here, one over there. Trump like, no, fuck all that. I'm rolling 60. I'm pardoning all the 60s, and that's that. And whoever else, go get your team in line and let them win and let them do it. That's his mindset.
Well, he pardoned Harry O. You saw Harry O down at the party 8. Harry O was down
that was strategic too. That was strategic too. And Democrats. So again, when you're trying to appeal to a base, black men, which did rise for Trump, but still the majority of black men voters do vote Democrat. All you trying to do is peel off 1 or 2%. When people kept saying, of course, all black men didn't vote black people, Trump, just like all black men didn't vote for Biden or Harris. This game is all about peeling off 1 or 2%. When I flipped Michigan, I was the only black person on the ground for Bernie Sanders in 2016. We won by 1.5%. She had Detroit on lock. All the black people Detroit on lock. I went to Flint, where wasn't nobody going. The white boys went to the Union, got them organized, did everything. We did everything around, just like if you try and take over a hood, we did everything outside of their territory to get them on board to increase by that 1 and 2%. Trump knew that if he could appeal to 1%, 2% of not just black men, but those who have identified with some level of criminal justice, whether that's a woman that was down with her man for 10 years in the pen, whether that was somebody that did time, whether it was whatever, he was very smart and strategic. Let me go on and put Harry O out. Let me go on and put, you want to know one of the things he did that I think was way more effective, putting Trick in Detroit. Now on Shade Room, everybody said, who is Trick? I don't know who Trick. Well, plenty of people know who Trick is in Detroit. He was
Detroit,
very smart.
yeah. Hell yeah. People in the streets know who Trick is out here.
And you know what happened with that?
Exactly.
People, right. There were a certain sector of people that were disappointed because they were mad at Trump and they didn't know what to do. It's like, damn, they got the homie. Fuck it. I won't vote at all. It ain't even that they went to go vote for Trump, but that put enough salt in the game to make you quit. Remember you said a minute ago, he make you think. He make you question. That's the whole thing. Well, damn, a Trick on board. I swear Bezos on board. Shade Room. Why? Who? I swear Bezos. I swear Bezos feed a lot of people in Detroit. When you see him embracing them in Detroit, in a Detroit, remember Michigan is a swing state. It's a must-have to win. So him going to Detroit and peeling off 1 or 2%, and then the Arab community was pissed at the Democrats because of Palestine. That's how they won Michigan. People said, why he use Amber Rose? Amber Rose ain't nobody. Who is she? From Philly, from a swing state that you got to have. He was very strategic in picking 3 and 4 people. That's enough that may not necessarily mean people to vote for him, but enough to make people say, shit, I don't know what to think. Kwame Kilpatrick, former mayor of Detroit. I interviewed Kwame. I asked Kwame, why the Democrats ain't calling you? I don't know. Man, Kwame, you could went to jail or not. By giving him a pardon, you know how many people Kwame, he did some fucked up shit. To be honest, if he did it, he said he didn't, but let's just say he did. That man has taken care of a lot of people in Detroit. His mama is a former state rep. That man comes from several generations of politicians, meaning he knows where the votes are. If I use a dope as an analogy, you know where the crack fiends are. If you come to a new city and you putting in work, I just got to give it to away. If you putting in work, I'm going to go to the crack. Hey, y'all bring me back such and such, such. That's how politics works. When I go to a city and I'm trying to find where the votes are, what I mean by that is in Orlando, I can tell you this nursing home has 87 votes. It might be 200 people that live there, but I can tell you 87 of them I know going to go to the polls. You have to know where your votes are. So why would you ignore Kwame Kilpatrick, who was the first hip hop mayor, as they say, went to jail or not? Democrats could have pardoned him and brought him in the fold, but they didn't. So Trump was very smart. He didn't need a whole bunch. You just need a couple. Harry O, Trick, Kwame Kilpatrick. Look at what Boosie said today. Trump, can I get a pardon? Everybody got mad. Well, why? He said, man, I asked Biden. Biden didn't give it to me. So I'm going to ask Trump. Let's see what Trump do with that. He's smart enough to know. Let me go on and do, because that's going, like he did with the TikTok thing.
He's paying attention. He's paying attention to what's going on.
And while Democrats got their nose up in the air, Boosie ain't nobody. Who is Boosie? He ain't nobody. Okay. Keep on thinking that. Keep on thinking that people ain't looking at that and identifying with that in some way or the other. You know where I tell you the biggest failure with Democrats now? What Governor Newsom has done by reducing the gang enhancement in California, by them not talking about that. That's why we say ain't nothing done to nobody. No, they just don't talk about it. Governor Westmore has granted clemency for over 200,000 people in Maryland with marijuana convictions. Democrats never talked about it. Why would you never talk about it? You're going to let Trump come out and talk about 2-3 people when y'all got 200,000 on the books with a black man governor and didn't put him out. I interviewed Governor Moore. I asked him, why they not having you out? Why are they not utilizing that? Why y'all not talking about Governor Newsom? It's homies that on the yard for the first time in 30, 40 years, going home as old men. They're not a danger to society because of the rollbacks. And I want to be clear with people who listen, because, they always say, I'm not supposed to be promoting game. No, I'm just telling you what it is. It's never been about not doing the crime for the time. The gang enhancement was about giving you more time over sentencing you. If you did XYZ, you did XYZ. You shouldn't get an enhancement because you live in a certain neighborhood, because as we know in California, you can literally just live in a neighborhood and still be affiliated.
Yeah, for real. Or you could have just been in the car with a motherfucker. Right.
So Governor Newsom has rolled that back, and I know several people who have benefited from that, but they don't talk about that. They run with the narrative on Governor Newsom, crime out of control, homelessness out of control. Okay, all those things might be true. But you should have Governor Newsom talking to people about what he's done in criminal justice reform. But you didn't.
And I ain't gonna go into that, but a little bit. I think one of the problems with Newsom out here is that he spends so much time talking about guns because he thinks that's what people want to hear about.
Right. But I ain't even talking about California, because that's already on lock as far as Democrats are concerned. I'm talking about campaigning. When you put something, when you said he brought Harry O out, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about in California, because that's already locked. What I'm saying is, when they were doing national campaigns and brought out, these different spokespeople, if you will, there are spokespeople like that on the Democrat side that could have came out.
That nobody utilized.
Turn their nose up to that. They turn their nose up to that urban. I've been talking about it for years. You need to go get the homies involved. They turn their nose up at those types. So it's not that they're doing it. They don't feel it's worth it to bring them out. And Trump saw that open opportunity. He literally called it the lost man. He saw that open opportunity. If I was to ever run for office, ain't nothing but the homies standing behind me. They so busy trying to focus on bringing in white women, bringing in this type, that type, the elite, all of that, that you forgot there's a sector of people that never vote at all that went to vote for the very first time. And that was enough to change by 1 or 2%.
That's real stuff. Now, one of the topics I want to touch on is, dang, time went fast, and I knew this was going to happen. Everybody has
shit like that is good, because Tezlyn knows how to educate, normal motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying, as far as neighborhood and motherfuckers like myself who are not too inclined with politics, but when you put it on street terms, you give a lot of motherfuckers info that probably they didn't understand before about trying to deal with politics and the understanding of Trump and, you know, because you just hear a lot of motherfuckers. Anytime you hear a nigga or fuck Trump or man, I don't whatever, but they don't understand that. Like I tell niggas all the time, Trump a businessman. He ain't no politician. So that's why you get a lot of shit done and shit, because when you're a smooth business motherfucker, you look for results and shit. You feel me?
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you saying that. Hey, that means a lot.
But Ted, that's why I got you on there, because 8 really represents the hood.
Right. Right.
From the way he talking, everything is thought process.
Not to say that I'm not educated about certain shit, but it's just that certain shit, maybe homies in on the prison yards, they educate themselves to a lot of certain politics because being locked up in laws and different whatever. But just for the average nigga, you know what I'm saying, you really are inclined to learn a lot about what's going on, especially with the government and elections and different parties and shit. So you need to hear somebody tell you, and generally and just in regular shit. You get me?
Yeah, no.
You see it all the time. Don't give me all the motherfucking terms and motherfucking phrases. Just break it down to me simple terms to a nigga I can understand. 1 + 1 = 2. Give it to me simple. You feel me?
Right.
So that educates niggas a little more better.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then also, which is why Charlamagne called me the Hood Whisperer. I grew up. Reason why I can explain, that's why this is my favorite podcast to do, because it's literally Gangster Chronicles. So when I'm doing a lot of my lives and I use a lot of gang banging analogies, everybody sometimes don't understand, but when I'm with y'all, like, you literally, because gang banging is politics. It is absolute politics. It is absolutely from the OG to the YG to the BG to the everything is literally structured. This would be the governor. The OG would be the governor. The YG would be your mayor. The baby gangster would be your city council. Literally, it is literally structured exact same way. So those are my favorite conversations to have, because once I started explaining that, like, no, it's the same way. Let's talk about how you organize a hood. That's how you organize politics. Let's talk about how you move work in the city. That's how you do politics. Policy is work. It's the work. You're moving to work. All of those things are the exact same thing. And sometimes, well, I ain't gonna say something. I'm gonna pop my collar. A lot of people in my business don't know that life. I grew up in this. So I'm not speaking from something I read. You'll hear people say, "Oh, it's kind of like Bloods and Crips," but they don't know nothing about they don't know nothing about the constitutions, the policies, the rules, the this, the that, because you didn't grow up with this. I grew up in a Piru hood. Literally, everything I've been a part of has been affiliated with gangs. Literally, so because I understand that, because I've been a sympathizer or affiliated or whatever word you want to call it my whole life, I get it. Also, if you ever was down with anybody in the prison system, you just brought a prison system. The car. How you organize the car is politics. It's the same thing. So you can have one car, California, one Texas over here. But then when it's time for a riot, Black people gonna work across the aisle. Just like we're gonna all come together and we're gonna push this line. Same when you keep talking about the Mexican homies. Again, no disrespect. I'm just telling you what it is. This is where a lot of the divide came in still on the politics.
I already know where you're going to go, 100%.
I already know where I'm going, because it's important we talk about that.
That's real.
Like
I never get it twisted.
Yeah, like in California. Okay, yeah. I don't know what, again, this is where, depending on who you talking to in California, ain't no brown and black, coalition. No, but it might be a brown and black. I tell New York that all the time. You got to understand the politics of the region. New York is on that black and brown coalition. So when Representative Bowman, former Representative Bowman, the black man, go to the Breakfast Club talking to 9 million people about black and brown, people in the West and the South, they looking, what black and brown you talking about? Because this enemy territory out here. But you also might have, like you saying, the Mexican homies. There might be some black people that rock with the Mexicans. But overall, the culture of it overall, it ain't no black and brown coalition. And in the penitentiary, it's the same way. The penitentiary is the most segregated place in America. Ain't no coalition. And somebody told me one day, Aid, in the comment, oh no, they get along. No, they get along to survive. We might exchange money and commerce to survive. But if it's a riot, no, homie, you riding with the blacks and the Mexicans riding with the Mexicans and the whites are riding with the whites. And that's how people need to that's why people got their feelings hurt. When it come down to politics, people are going to ride with their own kind for the majority.
Right.
And what's the best for them?
And black people are the only ones, and I'm not saying all, we better start getting some understanding. But that's why black women sit up here crying all over the internet. I can't believe the Hispanics let us down. The white women, they didn't vote their interest. Their interest is to make sure that their white man is in position. Because if their white man is in position, they're in position, their son is in position, their children in position. So you talking to white women about abortion when I got to weigh out abortion versus white supremacy of white men being back in charge? Guess what them white women gonna vote? With their men. That's how it works.
100%.
See, on our end, black men don't have authority over white men. White men got authority by the numbers, by the data, over everybody. From who has had more action in this city. I mean, in this country, rights, money, home ownership, all of that. So the woman gonna lie. The white woman, when them white women did, I knew that was a scam. When they did that, white women for Kamala Harris, girl, knock it off. When you go in that booth, behind that, you voting in lining up with your husband.
Hell yeah.
Because it makes sense. So
because you saw Taylor Swift pulling about that shit. Taylor Swift pulling about that shit quick.
Well, she voted. She said she supported Harris, but it didn't matter when they went behind. I'm talking when they go behind them damn curtains.
Oh yeah, they can say whatever.
Say one thing. You can say one thing on this.
They can say whatever.
Yeah, but when you go behind that curtain, we going by the numbers. The white women voted with their white husbands for white supremacy, and I ain't mad at it because if I wanted to make sure I was surviving, that's what I would do too. What I want black people to do is focus on what we need to do to survive and how do we make sure we operate in our politics, and that is on the local and the state level.
And stop depending on other people. I got to get into this, Tez. These transgender policies. Trump says now a man is a man, a woman is a woman, all those pronouns, her, them, I'm a it, I'm a thing, that's over with.
Well, it's over with as far as federal government is concerned. So I want to bring some clarity to that. That's only on federal documents, federal things. That's not across the board. Again, this is why state and local politics matter. So that may not affect the private sectors, where people send emails out with she, he, and all that, tolerant work environments. Now, again, they may follow the lead of the federal government, but this is only on the federal passport, those things. They saying a government issued ID. I'm going to see how that's going to play out in the states because California decides how they want to move. Texas decides how they want to move. Each state has their own constitution. That's why I keep telling people the things that matter to you, you should be looking at your governor on down. Because if your state is still saying, no, it ain't over with, we going to still move XYZ, then it don't matter what Trump is talking about. Except on the federal level. And
so
sometimes
when he says
let me just finish this thought. Sometimes federal government does trump everything, literally speaking, and sometimes it doesn't. Just depends.
So I was gonna say something like he said, sports, no more men competing in women's sports. Like you see a dude out there boxing, he don't want to turn himself, he became a woman now, and he's competing in professional boxing women who are physically women and dominating. Well, he got control over that, right?
Well, no, because again, if MCA say I want to do a boxing event and I want to allow transgenders, he can do that. You can't control like what people are doing on the private end. What they're talking about is federal associated things that get federal money, things that get federal support, things that get, the things that they have control over. They're no longer going to support those things as far as the sports.
Okay, got you.
But if I want to start my own private I want to create the Tezlyn Figaro Olympics, and I say I'm gonna be included because guaranteed somebody gonna do it because now it's an opportunity to do it and make money with it just from now. Okay, I want to create this, and I'm going to allow XYZ. Then yes, if there's a school district that says no, we're not gonna go with that. We are still gonna allow your Governor Newsom, passed gender bathrooms K-12, gender neutral bathrooms. That happened at the state level. So if you want to change that, if you got issue with that, you better be talking to Governor Newsom. He run California. He the OG. He run that set, not Trump. There's some things, again, depending on what it is, that will affect everybody across the board. But most things are controlled by your governor. Your governors have the most power as far as your everyday life than the president of the United States. And I encourage people to go back and watch the debate between Newsom and DeSantis, so you can really see how much power governors have, and look at their debates compared to a presidential debate, and you're going to see the difference. That's where you're going to see those tangible things, like what they actually did and done, and all. People in Congress, they just write laws and issue out money. They don't. A governor's the one saying, I'm gonna put this on this block, that on that block, this, that. That's where you get into the action, where you actually know what government does for you or doesn't do.
Okay, so one last thing. They cut critical race theory in the schools. All across the board. Is that also a state thing?
It can be a state thing. It also can be a private school, charter schools. Charter schools do what they want to do. And it's not about cutting it. It's saying they're going to cut the funding. If you want federal funding, which most of them needed.
Yeah, I at least read that about them doing that in the schools.
Yeah. But you can very well do your own, like one of my trainees that I trained, and she trained some of my classes for me. She started a Black History program in Tulsa, Oklahoma. When they cut it out because Oklahoma wanted to cut it out. That's been cut out for the last 3-4 years. So she went and started a private organization that teaches, Black history. So I want to be clear about that. Your school board, again, that's your state and then your local school board. But what they're saying is, we ain't going to give you no money. So essentially, you might as well say they're going to cut, because they can't afford to lose the money. So again, that's one of the things you kind of want to look at and see, like how that's going to land. But that is one of the things that I think will affect everybody across the board, because every school don't have money. So how can you afford to not, to lose that federal funding? But your charter schools, private schools, things like that, they can do what they want to do, which is, by the way, why a lot of Black conservatives push charter schools, independent schools, so that we can, and that's a big argument too in politics, big argument between Black people saying, let's do our own, our own schools, our own, teach our children how we want to. And then other Black people are saying, well, when you do that, you take away from the fund, you take away from basically investing in public schools. Not everybody can drive their child to the other side of town to a public school. They need a bus to pick them up. So what happens to the kid that can't go to the private school or pay the tuition or have access? But then Black people are like, but we got to do something. We got to give somebody an option, because we can't just keep depending on this. There's an episode that I have, if you guys want to look into that, two Black men arguing that on Tez on 10 on Revolt, one of our most popular ones, where we're debating public school versus private school for Black people.
I'm gonna have to go look at that.
It's a big deal. School choice is a big deal in the Black community, way bigger than what I thought. Like, people really get into that. They really get into that.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to private school.
Yeah.
It was. I don't know if it was necessary, but like you said, it was a thing. You get me, for a Black family to say they were sending their kid to a private school. You get me? Like, I went because my cousin went. You get me? So it was like, and should I have been there? Was it probably hard on my mom because she was a single mom trying to send, two of her kids to a private school? Not because, like I say in one of my songs, that was trying to fool motherfuckers. Because I still was a nigga, you get me? You would think the assumption of when you go into private school that your whole life is different. You know what I'm saying? You growing up in that good part of town, or, you being whatever. But nigga, I was living in a neighborhood. That was all to me trying to compete with those good motherfucking families, or those, like my cousin was the only kid. You get me? It wasn't 3 or 4 of her in the house like us. You get me? But it was it was something for moms like to send her kids to private school. But shit, you still bad as fuck at school. You get me? It wasn't even, it was just a sense of saying, oh yeah, I could send them to private school. But yeah, that's a big thing. You know what I'm saying? Public school over private school.
Yeah,
it's a big thing. Black people really, and by the way, just so people know, Republicans support school choice, meaning they say you should be able to have a voucher to send your kid wherever you want them to go. If you want them to go to the local public school or to a charter school, they believe in getting a voucher to be able to help you to go. But the argument is, again, on the other side is, when I sent my daughter to a charter school, I was able to pick her up. I had to pick her up. There were no buses. The buses don't take you to charter school, public school. It's on the other side of town. So what about the mother that can't do that, or the father that can't do that because they're working? Now their child is stuck in the public school that's underfunded, and they're not getting the resource because their argument is all the resources go to the funding, go to help them. Why don't you spend all your time getting this right? And my argument always was, I'm going to help you get this right, but I still can't have my daughter be no sacrificial lamb because the particular school that was in the area was failing. I can't send my daughter to a failing school just because I'm trying to be about the cause. I'm still going to help y'all fight now, but my responsibility is to get Jada, make sure Jada get to the next step, of where she needs to be,
100%. So Tez, when they talk about cut funding for, like ending diversity and inclusion policies, that's only on the federal level?
Yes.
Okay.
But that does not mean that the state won't follow. So again, if the big homie's doing something, who's to say that another set ain't gonna do it? We've seen that in gangbang. Hey, they move like this. Well, we gonna move like this. Or this generation, you see that generation. This generation did it this way. Well, this generation gonna do another. A really good example is every generation gets harder and harder with their gangbanging. In the 80s, it was just all about fighting. Then it went to shooting. Then it went to this and it went to that. So that's the same thing that I want you to understand about federal. If they doing one thing on the federal, then a governor like a Governor DeSantis in Florida gonna follow suit. A governor like the governor in Texas, they're gonna follow suit. Exactly. And that's what people are saying. It can get worse and worse and worse and worse depending on where you live, but depending on what set you riding, depending on what's what. So it's on the federal level, but it doesn't mean that states are not going to follow, because everybody say, oh, if it work on the federal level, let's do it here. It's almost like a pass to be able to say they doing it over here, so we might as well do it over here, which they wanted it.
Let me tell you, one of the things that I saw that I thought was really interesting is that my oldest son is a firefighter. One of the things I saw on X, that formerly Twitter, whatever it's called now, a whole bunch of white cats on there talking about, the reason why the fire is going down in LA is because white firefighters couldn't get the job because they was only giving them to black people. And I said, that's the biggest, like, where did y'all get that information from?
Well, I mean, that's just talk. I mean, that, again, we're in an era where anybody's saying anything on the internet, and that's why this stuff is important. That's just talk. I want to give another point that's important back to when I just did the analogy with the state and local. This is very important. Georgia is a conservative state as a whole, but Atlanta is a black city. And this is where you really get a chance to see the difference between who running what set and who doing what. Georgia, conservative, he can follow everything Trump is doing, but Atlanta has a black mayor. Atlanta has a majority black council. Atlanta, South Fulton is 97% black. So they govern themselves. Which is why I relocated. They govern themselves. They pay themselves. They can set up their own minimum wage. Let's say the minimum wage is the minimum wage federal level $7.25. City of Atlanta can say the minimum wage for the city of Atlanta, not all the private, but the actual city is $15 an hour. You can live within your own world depending on what city you living in, which is why I keep telling Ake to run for mayor of Compton. You can create, I'm gonna say that every time. You can say that you can create your own America in your city. Now, Macon may be screwed. Savannah may be screwed. You can't save everybody, but in your city, you can set that up how you want to be. Now, I'm not telling everybody you need to move to Atlanta. I'm just saying I want to give people an example that a conservative state can still move in a certain way in that city. One of the cities who, just as FYI, a state that has liberal policies that actually has some really good positive outcomes is Colorado. California is very liberal, but California's big. So you got housing, you got crime, so they can say, oh, but y'all housing, homelessness or your crime in it. Colorado, go look at Colorado. That's a state that has one of the highest, the best healthcare programs. They have state healthcare. People do really well. The economy, the weed, the drug. They've ended qualified immunity. One of the few states that actually say, no, if a police officer kills somebody, we can sue you too. And those are things, again, that the Democrats don't talk about that they should be talking about. So just because something works one place well doesn't mean it doesn't work another place well or good, and those type of things. So that's why state politics is very, very important.
Very important. So Tez, you made that move, huh?
I made that move. I am back and forth now, but until my daughter, she goes to college, she got accepted for Prairie View. So I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations.
Very excited about that. Thank you. So when she goes full time, I'll be there completely full time. But now I'm just there between 3 and 5 days. Well, sometimes I'm a week at a time. So I'm back and forth. But I'm involved. I'm getting in. My brother Killer Mike got me busy already.
Y'all gonna be doing some dangerous stuff. Y'all gonna be a dangerous fandom down there.
We trying to get big. I've been talking to you a minute about it. Like it's about linking up where you can walk in the door and like entertainers. I don't know about everywhere else, but in the city of Atlanta, you got action. The mayor Rockwood, they got a whole department that just focus on just the rappers and entertainment in the mayor's office. Just partnership. Yeah, just partnerships with just making sure Atlanta understands that those things go hand in hand, from the strip clubs to the rappers to the singers to the business people. It's the Black Mecca for real, like for a real reason. Not just number one is the best places to live as far as Black people is concerned. This is by data. Homeownership. 49% of people in Atlanta are Black people are homeowners. Think about that. Almost 50%. This is a real data that came out in 2025. The median income is higher than anywhere in the country. Second place is Maryland, because they pay very well because government jobs, in Maryland. So when we talk about home ownership, 49. Can you imagine if we went in a room? Just think about if 100 people is in a room, 50 of them own a home. How powerful that is. Owning a home. Highest in entrepreneurship. Now that don't mean every business does well. It don't mean every business is a millionaire, but the highest in Black entrepreneurship. These are the thing
I noticed. That was one of the biggest things I noticed when I went down there. Remember, I told you I wanted to move down there.
I was telling you. Me and you were talking about Houston, and I gave you the pros and cons of both.
Yep, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I thought, like, my driver, when I went back to the airport, I got a Uber Black, right? A Black man, and he was telling me how he owned a whole fleet of those. He was like, well, I got 10 of these, I'm saying, I'm doing this today. And I was like, that is dope. How long you been doing that? Me and him was building, from the restaurants I went to actually see Black women in the kitchen. If I go to a soul food restaurant, Tez, no knock against nobody else. I want to see somebody look like my mama back there.
Right. Yeah. That's hard to in LA, because LA don't have a Black man.
Or if I'm going to a barbecue spot, I want to see an old Black man on the grill. That's just how it is.
See, it don't matter if you're going to a barbecue spot, a soul food, a Papa Do's, a chain, or whatever. You're going to see Black people everywhere. But it ain't even just about seeing Black people everywhere. I had this conversation with somebody today, one of the homies from LA. And he was like, man, I went and I saw Black people everywhere. I said, it's not even just about seeing Black people everywhere. You're going to see a Black people doing well.
Exactly.
You're going to see the hood. You're going to see the middle of the hood. You're going to see some of the... Atlanta is the only place, when I was up there a couple of months ago, is the only place in the country, I am positive, that I can go to an event. I went to Tip and Killer Mike. They got a new restaurant called Bankhead Seafood. The previous mayor was there. The current mayor was there. Right after that, we went right around the corner to the Trap House. Big U was in town, and it was about 160s. It's the only place in the country that I can go from current and present mayor to with the rolling 60s, literally in the same night, and be able to take pictures with them all and say, yeah, I was with the mayor and I was with the city, and literally, like, that's Atlanta. That's Atlanta, where all of that is recognized, all of that is embraced, all of that all of that, which Big U was there with his birthday. I think it was his birthday. His son was playing, son's in the NFL. So his son was playing at that time. But that's the only place where I go from one rapper's restaurant to the next rapper's restaurant, and the government is involved in that, making sure that they got the permits that they needed, making sure that those places open. There's a lot of places, but Atlanta's different and very special. And it's not just clout, it's not, people are not just saying it, just say it. It true. I don't know if you saw that series of Friday Night Fight with Kevin Hart. Fiction series, but go watch it. It's damn good. David Banner was in it on Peacock, and they're talking about Atlanta in the 70s and like what made Atlanta the black mecca that it is today. And even though it's fiction, it's still a very good series. Atlanta's a very special place. So I just thought for me still, and we had many conversations about this, I advocate for us. I need to be in a city that I can be back. I was very involved in Orlando, but Orlando doesn't have a lot of black, I dealt with the black community, but I really want to be, as I retire and think about the next things I want to do in my life, I need to be where I don't have to pick and choose to try to take care of everybody. I want to be where I know that 97% is me. And I can say black this, black that, and know that everybody voting and everybody, we all the same. We're going to have our fights. We're going to have our arguments. Everybody ain't going to agree. All black people ain't going to agree that the strip club should have been open later and not, or whatever. But the bottom line is I want to be where we are embraced on every single level, from entertainment to the hood, to the attorneys, to the doctors, every single level. I hung out at Tyrese's house. He lives in Atlanta. And I asked him, why did you leave LA? And he said, because of this right here, to be able to sit around black people in his home and talk about change and progress. He said, it's nothing in LA for me.
It's not, Tez, I'm gonna be real with you. It's not a black city.
I know you ain't gotta be real with the numbers say it.
It's not a black city. It's like, I'm gonna be real with you. I love my time out here and everything else, but I think it's coming this short. It's time to make a move,
Yeah.
So before we go,
I love LA. I want to be clear about that. I love LA because I love the
I love it too.
LA.
But like you said,
but when you start talking stretching your dollar, when you talk, do you want a 3,500 square foot house for 250, 300,000, or do you want 1,500 square foot for 1.2 million in LA or New York? It's just a matter of where you want to stretch your money or not. Do you want to build with people that want to build or not? Do you want to, I've always told you people, Houston is a cousin to Atlanta. So they're very similar in a lot of ways, but it's still, Atlanta's very different and special as far as government is concerned. Literally almost 90% of the staff, the whole mayor's office, city hall is black. I'm not talking about just one or two. I'm talking about literally everybody. And that don't mean all black people are for us, but it's still a very unique experience. Very unique.
For sure. So I want to talk about your show real quick. Tez on 10 and Revolt.
Yes. Well, I'm the chief political correspondent again. So I'm covering all of the daily stuff going on with politics. I'm also a senior producer as well. So I'm very excited about that. That was a promotion to be able to say, okay, don't just be in front of the camera, but be behind the camera. And I love that more than anything, because that to me is longevity. I don't always want to be front facing. So I'm excited about that. And then, Tez on 10, we did a series with that. So we're going to do, incorporate that. We did a versus where I bring on people to debate. But the main thing is that people just can tap in. Revolt is still majority black owned. It is still an organization I'm very proud of. Our studio is so beautiful, from the green room to a real investment in us. It's a place where I know I can work and really be center focused on the issues of black people. So
and that's important. Where is it based at? Is it based in Atlanta?
It's in Atlanta.
That's dope right there.
Yeah.
I know they got an office out
here. We're in LA for a long time, and then they started out in LA, but it makes sense to be in Atlanta.
Oh, so they moved it.
Yep, they moved it. So it's in Atlanta, headquarters in Atlanta. Beautiful studio still. Like, even if you're in town, you say, hey, we want to use the studio, we want to record something. It definitely ain't no, like, it's top notch. Green rooms, nice, pretty. Your girl's picture on the wall. And so I'm just proud. I am at a very happy place. I've been going through it this year. I'll say it. This work is hard. Like, really, damn, I'm trying to do something else. I don't want to do this. But I couldn't be happier. I'm not the richest. Some years I'm barely middle class, and there's years where I've been below poverty, straight up. You know, I'm not gonna put no cap on that. But I could not be happier to be with Revolt Black owned, to be with Black Effect. My voice, my podcast is Black Effect, Straight Shot No Chaser. My visuals were Revolt, and I wouldn't want it any other way but to serve us in my full capacity. So
that's dope. I know the homies over there, the homie DJ Screen, they got their show over there too. Big Facts, and he was telling me, he was like, "Yeah, I like rocking with Revolt."
Yeah, I it feels good to me. You know, I don't celebrate my birthdays. I like celebrating the dash. What am I doing between the time I'm here and the time I go home? And it
That's
just makes
real.
me feel good to know I'm serving my people. I'm not a bigot or anti anybody. I just believe that God has given me voice in this space. And so I want to be, I've been unapologetic. As you know, I go to Fox News talking this same shit. I don't switch up no conversation,
For real.
but it does feel good to know that my efforts, you know, the work that I put into, if I'm, you know, that I'm investing in something that believes in us, because I believe in us and I'll never give up on us.
Man, and y'all heard it there, man. Y'all make sure y'all go check out Tez on 10 on Revolt and the Homegirls podcast. She got a dope ass podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You supposed to say the thing.
Uh-huh.
I threw you the alley-oop and you didn't say nothing.
Oh, well, let me just say this. I'm going to say this in the words of NCA, wake your punk ass up. We are at a time where we cannot sleep. We just literally cannot sleep. So I do want to thank you guys, because people have tapped out, guys. They were like, you know, I ain't got nothing to do with it. I'm just going to mind my business. And I'm encouraging everybody every now and then, just tap in with me on the podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day. You don't have to watch everything coming across the screen, but every now and then tap in. And I can't thank you enough, guys, for having me here, because your base, the people that's listening to this, are my most important constituent. I say it all the time. My most important people. I am not doing this for nobody, but the people that's tapped into you are my most important. And so I just want to thank you guys for having me here.
Yes, indeed.
And y'all heard it there. And we out of here.
Yeah.